couple of years ago, I decided to get an MFA program. At the point, I had not even attended one workshop. I did not know what MFA programs were. I didn't even know that people paid for workshops to improve their writing. I just thought I'm gonna write every day and somehow someone will discover me and then I will become this famous person who writes for a living and make a ton of money. But we all know that's not the case. After I got accepted to the MFA program, I thought it was gonna be 2 years. I will write every day and by the end, I will have something to publish and then I will become an author. And I remember the first workshop I attended in my life was led by an author who is a New York Times bestseller, an award-winning author, and he told us the thing that I never thought before: do not write a novel first, write short stories. Now I know, there's a big debate in the writing community whether you should start with writing stories first or writing a novel, and if you are content with writing novels, I'm not going to change your mind. But here is my argument for why you should write short stories first. If you're new here, my name is Mohamed, and in this channel we demystify the writing process and discover tools and habits that make writing possible. First, writing short stories is a manageable commitment. For novels, a lot of writers take years before they can finish even the first draft. There are writers that I know that took 10 years to write their novel, and in between they wrote other stuff, other short stories and other work that they publish here and there, but their first published book was the novel that took all those years. That's a lot of time. Like short stories, you can commit for a month in order for you to write the first draft, or 2 months if you want to be generous. And especially in the beginning, completing a short story gives you a sense of accomplishment that pushes you forward, and that reward system that you give yourself will allow you to write more. Point number 2, because you are going through the cycle of storytelling, you are going through the arc of a story, you are completing a whole body of work, your skill set improves at different aspects. So you are getting better at dialogue, while you are getting better at descriptions, while you are getting better at background stories. So all these aspects that go into novels as well in longer form, you are getting better at them at shorter time, and you are able to do them multiple times within a year, let's say. Point number 3, testing ideas. In the very beginning, you should test every possible idea that comes to your mind. This is from the point of view, to the styles that you want to copy and develop your own, to the pacing that you want your stories to have, because what you are trying to do is exploring all these options so that by the time you are a mature writer, by the time you decide to write your novel, then you've tested so many ground and you're not limited to just one singular experience. I remember the first time I read a story from a point of view of a camera. I'm talking about an office camera that was overseeing a psychiatrist who was the subject of the story, but the narrator was the camera. Now, that sounds absurd and insane for people who are not interested in fiction works, but it's a story that I still remember until this day. So what if you want to write stories like that? What if you want to write a novel from a different perspective or from a different point of view, but then you start a novel and whatever you decide in the beginning, you have to stick to it until the very end, or at least after you're halfway there, because you can't really switch in the middle. You have to stick to it until you have a rough draft for you to actually know what the story is really about. The 4th point is that you are able to get feedback from people. It's already hard enough for us to find writers and communities that are willing to read our work and willing to exchange stories that we can critique each other. And finding someone to read a 300-page manuscript, it is extremely hard. But then if you have 10 pages or 20 pages of a short story, then it's easier to find friends that are willing to give you feedback, even if they're not writers. And within that process, you are able to notice how people are receiving your work, what you should improve, what you should lean on, what are the skills that you want to hone, and people around you get to know that you are serious about this writing thing. Point number 5 is that once you write multiple short stories and you're able to publish them, then they'll build a portfolio for you to showcase to publishers when you are intending to write a novel. It serves you better than going to a publisher and telling them this is your first body of work that you want to publish, because it will be a higher risk for them to invest in your work without seeing any back end or any history of the type of writer that you are. Point number 6, short stories are easier to give up and move on to the next one. If you invest a week or 2 or even a month on a short story and it does not turn well, you don't feel the story is picking up, then you can leave it and come back to it later. With a novel, once you write 50, 100 or 200 pages, then you have a level of investment that is very hard for you to turn into a different project. Even someone like George Saunders, who is the most celebrated short story writer of our time, he has multiple short stories in the works at the same time. He does not work on one short story, and whatever he feels like writing on that day, he just write it. And the next day he might work on something that he has put off for a month or two. So writing short stories gives you multiple advantages as a beginning writer. And there is nothing wrong with starting with a novel. It's just more advantageous for you to start with short form. If you like this video, then you will enjoy my video here and what makes you a true writer. In the meantime, keep writing.